Welcome to Halftime, the end of a 13.8 billion year trend. I'm Dave Lepore. If I told you that the sun would not rise tomorrow, you would probably think I was crazy. But that's only a 4.5 billion year trend. In this talk, I would like to present a case that a trend which is 3 times longer, that is 13.8 billion years, is ending. You still might say that I'm crazy, but I would like to present the case here by identifying the trend in big history and consider how it might continue. It is paradoxical that the current rapid change requires us to dig deep into history to get a perspective. The rapid change in technology, for example genomics, robotics, and artificial intelligence, seems to be accelerated, while the social response to its potential benefits and unintended consequences seems to be lagging. This has caused many thinkers, for example Martin Rees, to question whether humans are capable of surviving this. Big history can offer a perhaps sobering perspective. The rate of change seems to be part of a much longer trend observed in the rate of major events on Earth. However, this trend cannot physically continue, but must face a limit and change. One interpretation of our current period is one of a major inflection, while many systems undergo transitions in energy, environment, population, and economics. These issues often concern a global scale, requiring a global consensus on resolution, whereas previous transitions occurred over longer times among many regions. This transition is critical in that it occurs over a short time, requiring unified cooperation with irreversible consequences. However, if we do manage to cross this transition, further transitions might not be as critical as the rate of change slows down and reduces stress. Carl Sagan identified 3 major evolutionary phases on Earth: life, humans, and civilization. Each has unique information storage, for example DNA, the human mind, and writing. These phases start at about 5 billion, 5 million, and 5,000 years ago. This factor of 1,000 reduction in duration would mean that the next sequence would be 5 years, but that is highly unlikely. These durations can be compared to lengths. If the width of Central Park represents the age of the Earth, then 1 meter would represent human evolution, and the thickness of a dime, historical civilization. The length of Central Park would represent the age of the universe, which is about 3 times the age of Earth. Here the 3 major phases are shown as extended logistic transitions. Each phase might be broken into 6 sequential subphases of shortening duration by a factor of 3, which is consistent with a factor of 1,000 between major phases. These seem to be nested transitions as shown in the insert for the civilization phase. Nested transitions have been observed in the historical development of fundamental physics. There are various interpretations of this quick change. Ray Kurzweil thinks this change will lead to a technological singularity with great benefits for all, from artificial intelligence and robots in a few decades. Others, for example James Lovelock, see the Earth as fighting back to maintain its balance by mitigating the pesky animals acting like a cancer. Still another view is that this acceleration is just another set of random events which might lead to another extinction event that the life on Earth has experienced at least 5 times in the past. But with data from human population growth, sediment rates, and event rates, the long-term history suggests a trend in evolution to faster rates in a trend towards a singularity. However, while this is a trend to singularity, the singularity will never actually happen as limits are reached. Instead, it may be an inflection point in a very long-term logistic transition. The basic model is amazingly quite simple. A standard exponential growth leads to a finite but growing value for any time. However, if the growth rate constant is proportional to the progress so far, that is, the more you know, the quicker the rate of progress, then the growth trend is towards a singularity at a specific time. This can also be viewed as collective learning. One way to think about this difference is to compare a normal bank to a hyperbolic bank. If you have 2 units of money to invest, which would you choose? A normal bank which offers an interest rate of 10% per year, or a hyperbolic bank that offers an initial rate of only 3% per year, but will increase the interest rate proportional to the amount invested. For example, an investment of 4 would give 6% per year. The results of the growth of investment in the two banks is shown in the next slide. The results of the growth of investment in the two banks is shown here, with time going from left to right. The value in the normal bank continues to grow over time, doubling every 7 years, that is, exponentially. The value of the hyperbolic bank is below that in the normal bank until the 32nd year. By the 33rd year, there would be 4 times as much in the hyperbolic account. After 4 months more, the amount in the bank would be infinite. Of course, this is not possible. Metaphors are an important way to facilitate understanding of new processes. This metaphor is constructed based on the transition fueled with a limited supply of fossil fuels from the sustainable pre-industrial society to another more advanced sustainable society. However, to realize this potential, society must transition to a sustainable energy supply since fossil fuels are dwindling. A major question is whether this global transition can be completed at the same time that global development continues to improve lifestyles and economic opportunities. To help understand some of the complex relationship and challenges in this transition, a metaphor is developed of the evolving technological society as a rocket, which once launched needs to reach a critical velocity and altitude before obtaining a sustainable orbit. The basis for the metaphor is that there are 2 stationary locations for the rocket: the ground, similar to the pre-industrial society, and a stable orbit, similar to the advanced technological society. The rocket transitions between the two with technology to utilize a finite amount of fuel to overcome gravity and atmospheric friction to attain a speed, altitude, and orientation for a stable orbit. The main metaphor is that just like a rocket, the society advances with a limited fossil fuel that is initially on an unsustainable path. After launching from the safety of the ground, there is another sustainable solution, for example, the orbit of the rocket. Both systems, rocket and civilization, have to reach the second stable situation before their limited amount of fuel runs out. There are also many similar issues, such as achieving stability, transitioning to new stages, and passing through the atmospheric friction. Currently, we do not have a set of equivalent monitors or controls. In many cases, we really don't know the characteristics of the systems. For example, the amount of fossil fuels, the carbon dioxide level that causes irreversible harm, the number of people that need the energy, the level of energy efficiency that is attainable, and the economic viability of renewable energy sources. One possible extension of the trend is a modified logistic transition. The left side of the figure shows the cosmic phase along with the 3 stages of big history on Earth, that is, the evolution of life, humans, and civilization. Since the last 3 have similar links going left to right in this figure, but in reality the durations are a factor of 1,000 between them, this can be viewed as on a logarithmic scale from the Earth formation to the inflection in the middle. Instead of reaching a singularity, the midpoint indicates a transition to more progress, but the rate of progress slows down. But there are risks that need to be resolved as an integrated system. These systems include the Earth's environment, for example, climate, ocean, and land; appropriate use of technology, for example, maintain control, not become too dependent on it, and prevent misuse; and decision making, reach consensus on a global level, cognizant of inequalities. Since this is a large inflection transition, others have identified this transition as a possible big filter. That is, this might be one of the most difficult transitions for planetary civilization. The implications are that the probability of successfully navigating this transition might be low. Since change in many sectors are happening fast with potential irreversible effects and limits, we can look to history for perspective. One interpretation of the long-term trend in big history indicates an inflection instead of a singularity. This is why the 13.8 billion year hyperbolic trend seems to be ending, for example, in population growth. But it can continue in other ways, for example, a modified logistic trend. This transition is exciting, but dangerous. We might be on our way to the next level of sustainability, but we only have a limited amount of fuel and must maintain the spaceship Earth while in transit. An analogy was made to a rocket launching toward a sustainable orbit. This is why the 13.8 billion year trend towards the singularity seems to be ending. Instead, it might be an inflection point. Over this time scale, the probability of the sun coming up tomorrow would just be a third, since the Earth and the sun have only been around for a third of the universe's history. So in a sense, this prediction is 3 times more daring than saying that the sun will not rise tomorrow. Thanks for your interest in this. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please contact me at david.lepore@gmail.com.